On this episode of Robe Chats, the podcast,
I hit the road after that first year of college. We created what is Black Box. I say all the time, it feels like I'm operating two companies.
CEO of IPS, Nicholas Brown. Welcome to Robe Chats, the podcast. I am your host, Brian Matthews. I am joined behind the scenes by my good friend, Edwin Silva. Edwin, you doing all right today?
I'm good. I'm over here.
All right.
It's a pleasure to be here.
We are recording today from the studios at Soundcheck Nashville. My first time here in Nashville, and these are quite impressive. So we are happy to be here and happy to be recording a podcast, and extremely happy today to be joined by Nicholas Brown with IPS, based in Franklin, Tennessee, just outside of Nashville. So, Nicholas, thank you very much for taking the time to join with us.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
So I was kind of just doing my research on IPS, getting my background on you, and just kind of talking to Tommy Hall, who's our regional sales manager, and he was telling me the story about how you and Nathan went to college together, and then after college, you guys, came together to form this company. So if you could, just kind of give us that story. What was that like with you guys? How did you meet? How did you come up with the idea? And how did we get to where we are today?
Yeah, so Nathan and I both grew up in completely different environments. We both grew up in church, so that opened the door to music and getting behind a console. I wasn't a good musician, so I learned that I shouldn't be on stage. Maybe I should get at the back of the church. So got behind an audio console. When we got to school, I was there for business. He was there for video, and we both joined a technical arts team. So what that meant is we handled any event that the university would put on. So we met each other through that. I became an audio engineer and he became a LD. And so we kind of would end up on the same events working together. I hit the road after that first year of college for the summer, doing summer camps that were traveling around the U.S. And Nathan was able to hop out with a couple different artists doing some one-offs. And we got back from that for sophomore year. I was like, hey, man, this sucks to go out and do all of this random stuff. So we decided that we were going to start something. And I was there for business, so I said, I'll take care of all that. I need you to figure out everything else. So we started a business. That would have been 2016. Right. So I believe later this year it'll be 8 years, 7 or 8 years, somewhere in there. Fast forward, we were able to continue growing due to both of us having some relationships in church and Christian music. We would do events and small installs. So in the beginning of 2020, before COVID, we had the opportunity to acquire a business in Franklin that the owners were just looking for a different direction. They wanted to do something different. So we came in, we rented a lot of equipment from that company at the time, and we acquired their assets. We had the opportunity to hire some of the people that worked there. It was a very positive experience, but all of that happened on March 2nd. That's when that transition happened. So there was a couple of really awesome weeks going there, and then it's like, what? It's like
Then the world shut down.
The world shut down 2 weeks later.
Great timing.
Oh man, my birthday was March 14th, and I just remember that was not a good birthday. It just everything came to a halt. And, reality set in very fast. So, but what we didn't realize was, in an odd way, it was a time for our world to stop and for us to realign with a major transitioning that was happening both personally and professionally. I had only been married for 8 months at the time. And so to convince my wife to quit her full-time job, come work with us at IPS, she's our director of HR now. And so it was just a lot coming at us really fast. So it was kind of a moment to stop and reflect on what we had done and where we're headed. We have two divisions of the company, an integration division and a live events production division. Integration, those timelines are longer, so that work was keeping us going through COVID. That first year still wasn't a great year. I think everybody was in the same boat, but coming out of that, we had momentum. We had a drive to want to see this grow. It was a new brand, but coming out of COVID, 21 into 22, and now where we're at in 23, we've been able to acquire a lot of new assets, create strategic relationships like we have with Robe to be able to continue growing our inventory and building the team as we do it.
Yeah, that was just going back to the permanent installs. That was also a big thing for Robe. We saw that too. It was, because the live production, the concert touring, all of that was gone.
Yeah.
And it was really that architectural side that I think what happened, and maybe you saw it too, was that the permanent installation places that had been thinking about renovating but didn't have time because of their production schedules that were continually going, they found themselves with time to finally now do the renovation that they were wanting to do.
Those timelines on those projects are so long, and really before COVID, you could get your hands on equipment pretty quickly, and those timelines are definitely longer now than they were then. But projects from initial design concept to completion still take a long time, and so you couldn't necessarily halt those processes, or construction wasn't going to stop just because everything else around you was stopping. To an extent, things had to keep moving, and so we were super thankful to have permanent installation projects that made it through, helped us make it through. Now, the one thing to note is the biggest thing we saw through that time was video. So installing a lot of video infrastructure into facilities to help with a transition to being not in the same place at the same time, a little disconnected. So that's what got us through.
That's great. That's great, especially since it was, the timeline you were speaking about of, we had just kind of started in early March and then everything shut down. Just having that to be able to get you through to where you are today, because looking at where you guys are today, I mean, just from my perspective and seeing how you guys have grown, you've got a great new facility now. The warehouse area. You've got this black box rehearsal space. So just kind of talk to me about that growth now that everything has sort of started to come back, about the ability the IPS has now had to introduce these new things. Talk about that black box rehearsal space that you got.
Yeah, absolutely. So in 2020, we took over a facility. It was 30,000 square feet at the time. Very nice offices and a nice warehouse. We created what is Black Box. Black Box is a rehearsal space. It's just a 50 by 50 box in the middle of our warehouse. And a lot of our clients that are renting equipment from us use that space, but it's not exclusive to IPS clients. You're able to come into that space, reach out and use it for rehearsals, just much like what happens here at Soundcheck. So, with that, we have a suite in the front of our building called Suite 501. It's a small performance venue that's set up for writers' rounds and small events, but within that space is a complete coffee shop setup. So espresso, nitro, taps are there. So a lot of benefit for those clients that are using the rehearsal space. They can gain access to coffee and all kinds of drinks and keeping them hydrated as they go through their days. We have amp rooms they're themed amp rooms in the front of the building, and those are like green room spaces for people to have their own rooms and stuff. So on the warehousing side, at the end of 2022, we basically blew out a wall and carried over into the next suite. What it was both divisions were growing. Our live events were growing, but our installs were continuing to grow. As that team was growing, they needed more office space. So we added another 10,000 square feet. We're at 40,000 right now, and feeling the burden of needing more space. So, we're curious to see what the next couple years hold. We're kind of tapped on the amount of space we can get in the building we're in. We love being there. We love being in the heart of Franklin. There's any kind of food you could want, and you're close to everything. But we know that as it grows, there's going to be a transition that happens there as well. So.
Yeah. Well, that's great because you guys do a whole bunch of different projects. I know that you mentioned that you kind of started on that worship side, but you guys have gone into the concert touring, the installs. So kind of just walk us through what your normal day there at IPS, with all the different projects you guys got going on. Talk about the different teams that you have working in different areas and then the breadth of projects that you guys are doing.
Yeah, man. So I say all the time, it feels like I'm operating two companies because you've got an integration team that is thinking about things on much longer timelines, and you've got a production team that something could come up that is this week or next week, and so the way they approach their days and what they're doing is just completely different, and so you kind of put on that different hat, and that happens in the same day. It could be 5 minutes apart. You turn a corner in the office and the next hat's on. What's happening? So on the production side, we've seen tons of growth. So we definitely started in the Christian market, but immediately coming out of COVID, I put an emphasis on growing into other genres. And being in Nashville, the easiest one to grow into is country music. And so in 21, I believe going into 21 or 22, I can't remember, all the years come together now. We picked up a couple of country artists, Russell Dickerson and Mitchell Tenpenny, and very, very solid artists in the industry. And so with those coming on as that kind of barrier to entry, they allowed us into country music. They gave us a shot. Both of those artists are still working with us. We have packages out with them year round. We've been able to continue growing and picking up more. Last year we did the farewell tour for Florida Georgia Line. It was a big deal. We loved it. It was a lot of fun. They're a good group of guys. Through Florida Georgia Line, we were connected with Scott Cunningham. Scott Cunningham is Cut to Black Designs. We do a lot of projects with him. Great strategic relationship with Scott. And Scott does a lot of designing and programming for a lot of these country tours that we send out. Last year, we picked up Lady A. They're out right now on a tour. And this year we picked up Nico Moon, Dustin Lynch, Brett Young, and more to come throughout the fall. So really trying to push into that country market and go a slightly different direction, but still taking on the same type of Christian tours as well, and large one-off events.
That's fantastic. Well, now, will you guys, when you take on these clients, is you mentioned a Scott, will some have designers and stuff like that. Do you guys also do some design consulting or things of that nature? Is it supplying or?
Yeah, we try to keep those lines separate. So our goal is to work with designers. We don't actually do any designs in-house. So what happens if there's a smaller artist that comes to us and they don't have a designer, we're actually reaching out to several different people that can design for them and giving them recommendations, connecting them with the artist and letting them take it from there. Once they have something figured out, we can put a price together. They can get a price from someone else. We actually prefer to keep those lines kind of separate and try to say that, hey, we're here to provide the equipment and the people, but we'll connect you with the designers.
Yeah. And then on the install part, is it sort of the same way, or will you guys get your hands?
Yeah, so it's quite the opposite. So our goal on the install side is to get someone under design. If we get them under design, we're able to be with them throughout the entire process. So if you're able to get a design contract and really nail down what the client is looking to do, you're able to build that trust with them of this is the plan, this is how it's going to go together, and then we see that it's more likely that you're actually going to do the project. But one thing to note on both sides is if you're involved with design, that doesn't necessarily mean that you end up doing the project. You're advising to your client, and then beyond that point, they could go a different direction. But we found it very, very favorable if we can handle a design for them. We're able to work with them long term. So
nice. Well, it sounds like you guys are quite busy, and that's a good thing. But understanding, like you said, every time you turn a corner, you've got to put a different hat, or somebody's pulling you in a different direction. When you take a breath and you step away, from the office? What is it? We kind of want to give our listeners and our viewers a little bit look behind the scenes at the people. What is it that you kind of enjoy? How do you relax? What's your time away from the office look like?
Oh, I'm a dad, so my time away from the office is full.
That's awesome.
I have a little one. She's 17 months.
Oh, wow. Young one.
Yeah. And then another one on the way that'll be here in September. So
Congratulations.
yeah, it's exciting times. They're going to be 2 under 2. So we're going to learn the feeling of having 2 young ones with needing all of the attention here really soon. So the majority of my time gets consumed by my child, which I'm okay with. And then I try to disconnect. It sounds so cheesy, but like the first company that I started was a lawn care business with my dad. We did that for 5 years while I was in high school, and I just enjoy going out and cutting the grass and just doing simple tasks that I can not really think about anything and just honestly get my hands dirty, do a little bit of physical work. I try my best to do that at the office too, but there's so many things pulling me different ways. I don't get to do that as much as I would like to sometimes. So that's how I can kind of unplug. Growing up, I was a big fisher and a big hunter, but since moving to Tennessee, I wasn't from Tennessee. I was from South Carolina. So since moving to Tennessee, I've been so consumed with work and family that hasn't happened as much. But I think when I get a little older, I'll get back there. It takes time. So.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing. I'm the same way. It's amazing the therapeutic effect that can come from cutting your yard, and edging your yard.
Yeah.
And just doing something so simple, because you can just look at it when it's done and it's like, okay, I accomplished something today. It's something that I wanted to do, and my yard looks good now.
Hey, we're in a little bit of a drought here in Middle Tennessee, so every evening I'm out there watering that grass. I'm like, don't die on me. It sounds so cheesy, but it's the little things.
I agree with you, man. I'm right there with you. I enjoy those little, tasks that you can do around the house and just getting one done and getting one accomplished, and it really just gives you a nice feeling of, okay, that's been on my mind, it's been on my list, and I've had so much to do at work, and I haven't had the chance to get to it, and now I did, and it just gives you a nice sense of relaxation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, seeing how IPS has done so well, I mean, congratulations on the success of IPS. You guys have really built something that just from what I see, on social media and online, it seems like you guys have really built something great. If you were to go back to that school that university where you guys first met, and you were to speak in front of a class of technical students, production students, and you could see your 20-year-old self, 19-year-old self sitting out there listening to you, what advice would you give him on how to make it in this industry, or not make it, but how to achieve the personal success that you want to achieve in this industry?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I went to Lee University, and they're actually one of our. We have a great relationship with Lee. We still provide equipment for all of the events that they need outsourced equipment for. If they have artists come in, we work with them on those things. So we have a very, very good relationship with the university. So if I went back and talked about how to get into the industry, it was a grind. It was not an easy process. But what I try to do, I even do this with my employees, is I enjoy entrepreneurship, and a lot of people in this industry, even if you're a tech that is out on the road, in a way you're an entrepreneur. A lot of them are contract based. They start a company, even if it's just managing their own labor. And I want to be able to empower people to go pursue and be an entrepreneur, get into business in whatever fashion they see fit for that. Getting into this industry from a technical standpoint, there's not enough guys to go around. So I look at it and say, man, at this point in my life, how easy it feels, so easy to get into things, but we don't have enough people. So I want to get in front of guys and say, get out there, give it a shot. It doesn't always have to work out. Things happen, people make mistakes, and I've learned to be understanding of that because I make mistakes too. And so just get out there and give it your best, get connected, be willing to talk to people, because everybody's needing help right now. So just get connected with people.
Yeah, yeah, that's good advice. I mean, there is definitely a need for people in the industry today, and I think that would be good advice for them. And so, I'll let you go on this next question, and I didn't tell you about it beforehand, but take your time and tell me what you think. But just understanding where IPS started and where IPS is here today, and looking at all the different technology that's out there and the technology advancements that are happening with it, with video and audio and lighting and everything. Where do you want IPS to go? You kind of had a clear vision of where how you wanted to get to where you are today, but just looking, 10 years, 20 years down the road, where do you want to take IPS in the future?
Well, this has actually been a conversation that came up a lot here recently. It's as every year as we get to the middle of the year, we're thinking, what's next year look like? And well, as we think about what next year looks like, we're thinking 3, 5, 10 years down the road. And so from a production standpoint, lighting's actually our largest department. Second to that, video, and our smallest department's audio currently. And there's no real reasoning behind that besides the type of projects that have come up that have allowed us to grow lighting to being the largest department. We enjoy video, we enjoy audio, but we've seen a lot of positive opportunities in the lighting industry. So our goal is to continue investing into our inventory. We try our best to continually have the latest and greatest fixtures, and be in conversations with manufacturers about what's coming down the line, and connected with designers. Designers want to know what's out there. They're connected with manufacturers, and when they ask for things, I want to know what they are and should I have that item. So over the next few years, our goal is just to continue investing into new inventory and people. People are very important to the growth of the company. I can buy all this gear, but if I don't have the right people to make those things happen, then that gear is not going to do anything or do me any good. So it's very important to make sure we have the right people. But as far as the size of the company and where we're headed, I haven't put a real cap on what we're here to do. Our goal is just to keep our heads down, keep working hard, keep growing. Same with integration. You're just selling equipment at that point. And so our goal is just to see what can we do with this thing. We don't want to necessarily say, could we hit a certain metric in a few years? We've seen a lot of growth over the last few years. We plan to keep that up. And so we're hopeful for what's ahead.
Yeah. Well, Nicholas, thank you very much for chatting with us today. I mean, and congratulations on all the success of IPS. I know that you and Nathan have really put the work in behind the scenes to get it where it is today, and it's great to meet you guys and have you as part of the Robe family, and thank you very much for taking the time to chat with us today.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
That's it for this episode of Robe Chats, the podcast. Big thanks to my man Edwin behind the scene. Edwin, we good?
Yes, sir. Everything's perfect over here.
Edwin is a man of few words but many talents. If you ever get a chance to sit and chat with Edwin, he's always a good time. But you can find our Robe Chats, the podcast, on all your standard podcasting platforms. You can also find us on YouTube and watch the live, or well, not live, but watch the podcast as well. But thank you, everyone, for taking the time to join us. And just remember, may the light always shine your way, and it's the Robe way. Have a good day.